She kissed me that evening like any other. By morning, she was gone. No note, no call, just silence. And then my brother vanished too. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then I found a letter, and everything I believed about my marriage, my family, and the people I trusted most unraveled in one brutal paragraph. What followed wasn't just betrayal, it was a collapse of everything I'd built. This is the story of how I lost everything and somehow found something better. I've spent the better part of a year trying to make sense of what happened. There were still days I woke up and expected to see her next to me, hear the sound of Ellie's laughter mixing with Lauren's humming in the kitchen, and for a few seconds, I believe everything's still okay. Then reality hits like a punch in the chest. To understand what happened, I have to go back before the lies, before the betrayal, before everything fell apart. I was born in Rockdale, Missouri. If you've never heard of it, that's not surprising. It's one of those places where time drags its feet. We've got a diner that still serves coffee in chipped mugs and a gas station where half the pumps don't work, but nobody complains. It's home. Or it used to be. My dad died when I was 8. He was fixing a gutter on our roof, something he'd done a dozen times before. Slipped, fell headfirst. It was quick, they said. One of those accidents people whisper about in town, shake their heads over. My mom, Martha, never recovered. Not really. She loved him deeply, maybe too much. After he died, it was like the light in her got dimmer. She worked part-time as a nurse, doing her best, but there were days she could barely get out of bed. That's when Uncle Ray stepped in. Uncle Ray was my dad's older brother. He didn't have a wife or kids, never even saw him date. Just a stoic, quiet man with grease under his nails and sun-leathered skin. He owned a little mechanic shop on the edge of town and lived in a plain, two-bedroom house behind it. When Dad died, Ray didn't say much. Just showed up one morning with his toolbox, fixed the broken stair on our porch, and never left. He became a second father to Trevor and me. And oh, Trevor. Trevor was younger than me by 2 years but acted like he was owed the world. From the time he could talk, he had a temper. Broke toys. Screamed when he didn't get his way. He bullied me constantly, not in that boys will be boys way, but in a cruel, cutting way that made me dread coming home. He'd hide my things, blame me for his screw-ups, hit me when he thought he could get away with it. Mom always defended him. He's just acting out, she'd say. It's the trauma. He misses his dad. Maybe she was right, I don't know. But she never really protected me from him, and Ray, though he tried, was outnumbered. He didn't live with us, after all. He had his shop, his world. Still, he did more for me than anyone else ever had. He taught me how to work with my hands, how to fix things, how to keep my cool when everything was falling apart. I grew up in that mixed chaos and quiet. I was the quiet one, the steady one. I stayed up late to help Mom with bills. Took jobs after school. Went to community college, then transferred to a state university on a partial scholarship. Worked my ass off to graduate with a degree in electrical engineering. That's when I met Lauren. I wasn't looking for love. I was working at a hardware store while interning at a local firm, and she came in one afternoon looking for paint. She was wearing this worn-out hoodie and her hair was in a messy bun, but she smiled like she knew every secret in the universe. She was smart, curious, and had this way of really listening when you talked, like every word mattered. We started dating. She was finishing her psychology degree, working at a clinic part-time. We bonded over coffee and night walks and shared silence. I loved that most about her, how comfortable the silence between us was. After 2 years, I proposed. Nothing flashy. Just us on the back porch of Uncle Ray's place, the sun setting behind the shop. She said yes with tears in her eyes. We got married the next spring. Bought a fixer-upper outside town, rented at first. Then came Ellie, our little girl with dark curls and her mom's big, wondering eyes. I'd never loved anyone like I loved that kid. She made everything worth it. Lauren was amazing with her. She read her stories in funny voices, danced around the kitchen with her, made up songs about broccoli to get her to eat. We were tired, sure, what new parents aren't? But we were happy. It was a Thursday afternoon. Ellie was halfway through smearing mashed banana into the living room rug, and I had my phone wedged between my shoulder and ear, trying to schedule a job inspection for later that week. Then my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't seen in years. Hey, I'm back in Rockdale. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. The last time I saw Trevor, he was boarding a bus in fatigues, promising Mom he'd come back a man. That was almost 4 years ago. I texted back something neutral, wow, didn't expect that. When did you get in? And he replied a minute later. Couple days ago. Staying with Mom. Let's catch up. Later that evening, Lauren was folding laundry on the couch, and I mentioned the news. She paused mid-fold. He's staying with your mom? Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. He says it's temporary. Just got out of the army, wants to regroup before figuring out his next move. She raised an eyebrow. That's vague. Lauren wasn't wrong to be cautious. She'd only met Trevor twice, once at our wedding where he showed up 2 hours late and slightly tipsy, and again at a family dinner where he spent most of the night criticizing the food and arguing with Uncle Ray about real patriotism. But I shrugged it off. He says he wants to spend time with Ellie. Lauren sighed. Let's see how that goes. It started small. Trevor dropped by one afternoon with a box of donuts, said he just happened to be in the area. Ellie was shy at first, but he had this charm, this easy, jokey energy that kids latch onto. Within minutes he was making her laugh, juggling toy blocks and pulling a coin from behind her ear. I've got a ton of free time now, he told Lauren while she cleaned up the kitchen. Figured I could help out around here. Give you a breather while Alex is out busting his ass. Lauren smiled politely. That's kind of you. Over the next few weeks, he came over more and more. Sometimes in the morning, sometimes just before dinner. He'd show up with toys, books, candy. Played the doting uncle role like it was an audition. I'm just trying to be part of the family again, he told me one evening when we were fixing a broken cabinet hinge in the garage. Ellie's amazing. You really did good, man. It sounded genuine. I wanted to believe it was. Mom, meanwhile, was over the moon. Trevor was home, and nothing else seemed to matter. She called me every other day with updates I didn't ask for, how he was eating better now, how he was working out again, how he was thinking about going back into service. Not once did she ask how Ellie was doing, or how I was holding up balancing work, fatherhood, and keeping the house together. Uncle Ray was less impressed. One night after dinner, he pulled me aside as he was getting into his truck. You keeping your eyes open, kid? I frowned. What do you mean? Ray stared at me for a long second. Trevor don't just show up because he misses people. He shows up when he needs something. I wanted to argue, but I didn't. I just nodded and said, yeah, I know. Except I didn't. Not yet. If someone had taken a picture of our family that fall, it would have looked perfect. Trevor, handsome in that disheveled, ex-military kind of way, grinning with Ellie on his shoulders. Lauren, relaxed for once, sipping coffee while folding laundry on the porch. Me, pulling into the driveway with my work boots still dusty from a long day, smiling because it was enough just to come home to them. But the camera only sees surface. It doesn't catch the shifts. The quiet moments where something doesn't feel quite right. Trevor started dropping by daily. Always unannounced. At first, I didn't mind. Ellie adored him. She called him T, and he called her Tiny Tornado, which made her laugh until she hiccuped. He played with her for hours, ran around the backyard, taught her silly handshakes, built couch forts that took over the entire living room. I swear, he's better with her than I am. I joked one evening while Lauren and I were cleaning up the aftermath of one of his uncle adventures. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. He's definitely energetic, she said carefully. What's that supposed to mean? Lauren hesitated, then shook her head. Nothing. I don't know. It's like he's trying too hard sometimes. And he never asks before he shows up. He's family, I said, more defensively than I meant to. He just wants to help. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe it. I should have paid more attention. One Friday afternoon, I got home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, too quiet. Ellie was napping. The TV was off. No music, no clatter of toys. Lauren and Trevor were in the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter, close, too close. She was chopping vegetables, her body angled away from him, but her face was flushed. He said something I couldn't hear, and she laughed, a soft, nervous sound I didn't recognize. I stepped into the room, and they both jumped slightly. Hey, I said slowly. Didn't expect to see you here. Trevor grinned. Just dropping off some books for Ellie. Figured I'd stick around, help with dinner. Lauren turned back to the cutting board without saying much. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was being paranoid. That there was no way my brother, the same kid who used to lock me out of the house in my underwear, would ever cross that line. But the cracks were starting to show. And once they start, they don't stop. After that day in the kitchen, I started noticing things I hadn't seen, or maybe hadn't wanted to see. It was the way Trevor lingered. The way Lauren smiled, then immediately looked away. The way he'd show up just after I left for work and somehow always be gone before I got back, unless he stayed for dinner, which was becoming more frequent. Lauren didn't say much about it. But she started changing in small, subtle ways. She got quieter around me. Distant. Not in a dramatic way, no slamming doors or screaming matches. Just gone, emotionally. Her eyes didn't light up when I came home anymore. When I held her hand during Ellie's bedtime stories, she didn't hold mine back. I chalked it up to exhaustion, to the grind of parenting, to my long hours at work. I told myself that Trevor was probably just a convenient distraction, a way for her to escape the monotony of diapers and cartoons and home-cooked meals. But something inside me twisted every time I saw them together. One night, we were lying in bed, the room dark except for the faint blue glow of the baby monitor. I rolled over and asked her, "Are you okay?" She paused. "I'm tired." "I know. I just feel like we haven't really talked lately." She shifted. "We're busy, Alex. That's all." But it wasn't all. I tried harder. I started coming home earlier when I could. I took Ellie out on little daddy-daughter trips to give Lauren space. I even invited her to date nights again, but she always had a reason: too tired, too much laundry, didn't want to leave Ellie with just my mom. Meanwhile, Trevor kept showing up. Sometimes with groceries, sometimes with flowers, for Lauren, he said, as a thank you for putting up with me. Sometimes he brought toys for Ellie, most of which were weirdly expensive. I didn't know where he was getting the money. He claimed he was between contracts, figuring things out, and Mom parroted the same line whenever I asked. "He just got back from the army, Alex. Give him time. It's not easy readjusting." Easy? I hadn't had an easy day in years. And now I was starting to feel like a guest in my own home. Then came the afternoon that burned itself into my memory. I came home early again, unannounced. The front door was open. Ellie was at daycare. Lauren had insisted she take an extra afternoon so she could catch up on things. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked through the living room, called out for Lauren. No answer. I found her in the backyard, sitting on the porch steps, with Trevor. They weren't doing anything, just talking. But she was sitting close to him, closer than necessary, and his hand was on her knee. They didn't see me right away, but I saw them, and everything inside me went cold. I didn't say anything that afternoon. I couldn't. I backed away from the window like a coward, heart pounding, stomach churning, my brain spinning in circles trying to explain it away. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw. Maybe. But I had. I knew I had. Lauren was quieter that night. She didn't ask about my day. Didn't meet my eyes over dinner. Trevor didn't show up, and Ellie kept asking where her Uncle T was, pouting when we didn't have an answer. I kissed her goodnight and just sat on the edge of her bed for a long time, watching her sleep like I was trying to absorb some kind of peace from her. The next morning, Lauren was gone. At first, I thought she just stepped out. Her shoes were missing, and so was her coat. Maybe she went to the store, I thought. Maybe she needed a break. But the house was too still. The air too thin. Then I checked her closet. Half her clothes were missing. Her overnight bag. A few things from the bathroom. And then I opened the drawer where we kept the important papers, Ellie's birth certificate, insurance info, bank documents, and it was half empty. My mouth went dry. I called her cell. It rang twice, then straight to voicemail. I texted her, once, twice, 3 times. No response. I checked with the daycare. Ellie was there. Lauren had dropped her off earlier than usual, said she had an appointment. She didn't pick her up. I called my mom. "Have you seen Lauren?" "No, honey," she said. "But Trevor stopped by earlier. Said he was heading out again. Signed some new service contract. Quick deployment." He said goodbye and left in a hurry. The silence that followed felt like a weight pressing against my ribs. Both gone. On the same day. No goodbye. No explanation. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in Ellie's room on the floor beside her crib, staring at the ceiling, waiting for a sound, a knock on the door, a car in the driveway, anything that would mean this wasn't what I thought it was. But nothing came. The next morning, I found the letter. It was tucked into the mailbox, folded in half, addressed in Lauren's handwriting. My hand shook as I opened it. It was a plain envelope, no markings, no stamp, just my name on the front in Lauren's familiar, precise handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before I even touched it. Something in my gut already knew. Some part of me, some primal, quiet place, had been screaming for weeks. And now here it was. Confirmation. I opened it at the kitchen table, hands trembling so badly I had to flatten the paper with my palm just to read the words. "Alex, I know this is going to hurt you more than anything ever has. I also know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now. But I owe you the truth. I've left. I didn't know how else to do it. Saying it to your face would have destroyed me, and I don't deserve the grace of your forgiveness, not after what I've done. I'm not asking for it. I'm only asking that you try to understand that I didn't plan any of this. Not at first. Trevor and I. It started gradually. A look. A conversation that went too deep. It felt harmless until it wasn't. I know you'll see this as betrayal, and it is, but I can't pretend anymore. I fell in love with him. I fought it. I hated myself for it. I still do. But it's not just about feelings anymore. I'm pregnant, Alex. It's Trevor's child. I found out a few weeks ago, and I panicked. I couldn't carry on pretending to be your wife, pretending to be the mother in this perfect little family while lying to everyone every single day. I don't know what will happen. I don't know where we're going yet, but I needed to be honest before disappearing completely. You deserve that, at least. Please, take care of Ellie. Don't let my mistakes touch her. You've always been the solid one, the one who held everything together. I know this will break you, but I also know you'll survive it. I hope one day you'll find someone who truly deserves the life you gave me. Lauren. I sat there, unmoving, the paper clutched in my hands. My heart wasn't breaking, it had already broken. What I felt was something else. Emptiness. Like I'd stepped out of my body and was watching it all from a distance. Pregnant. With my brother's child. She had carried that secret for weeks. Looked me in the eyes. Slept beside me. Sat at the dinner table with our daughter. I thought about the little signs I ignored. The long looks. The subtle withdrawals. The way Trevor had wormed his way into our home, our family. And how easily Lauren let him in. I wanted to scream, to tear the house apart, to drive until the road disappeared. But Ellie was in the next room, humming to herself while coloring. So I did what I had to do. I made her a sandwich. Sat down beside her. Smiled like I wasn't unraveling. I was already learning how to live with betrayal in real time. Later that evening, once Ellie was in bed, I called Mom. I didn't want to, but I felt like I had to, some desperate attempt to confirm that this nightmare wasn't real. She didn't even let me finish before she cut me off. Trevor would never do something like that, she snapped. You're just angry. People don't run off for no reason, Alex. Maybe you weren't the husband you thought you were. I could barely breathe. I told her about the letter. She didn't ask to see it. I know my son, she repeated. Lauren must be confused. Hormonal. That's not Trevor's baby. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. She'd made her choice. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of Ellie's bed and watched her breathe, like if I looked away, I might lose her too. I didn't go to work the day after I got Lauren's letter. I called in, barely forming a sentence, and my boss, who'd known me long enough to tell when something was wrong, didn't ask questions. He just said, take the time you need. Ellie was too young to notice anything had changed. She still ran around the living room in her socks, dragging her bunny by one ear, still asked for strawberries in a blue bowl, not the red one, still wanted to be read the same book 3 times in a row before bed. And I did it all. Every chore, every diaper, every lullaby. But inside, I was hollow. 2 days after the letter, I drove to the shop. It wasn't planned. I just ended up there, like my hands turned the wheel on their own. I pulled into the lot around 7 p.m., long after the mechanics had gone home. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the bay doors. Ray was inside the office, alone, the soft glow from his desk lamp pooling across paperwork and a worn mug. He looked up when I stepped in, and for a moment, I couldn't say a word. I just stood there, like a broken kid again, needing someone to notice that I was about to fall apart. He didn't ask me what was wrong. He just pulled out the other chair, sat down beside me, and waited. Eventually, the words came. She left me, Ray. I was surprised how steady I sounded. With Trevor. I saw his jaw tighten. He didn't speak. She's pregnant. I added, and that cracked something inside me. It's his. I stared down at the oil-stained floor, wishing I could sink into it. Ray didn't react at first. Then he let out a long, low breath. You didn't deserve that, he said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the fog in my head. I thought we were building something. A family. You were, he said. She just didn't want to be part of it. That silence returned, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like something being rebuilt, piece by piece. I don't even know how to breathe without her, I admitted. You do, Ray said. You breathe for Ellie now. That little girl is your compass. I nodded, but tears were already spilling over. I turned away, ashamed of how weak I felt. Ray didn't flinch. I always knew Trevor had something twisted in him. But this is beneath him. He's not just selfish, he's poisonous. He put a hand on my shoulder. But you, Alex, you've always stood straight, even when no one noticed. And I'll be damned if I let this break you. I'm here. Always. It was the first time since everything fell apart that I didn't feel completely alone. 3 days later, he showed up at my front door. Ellie was already in bed, and I was microwaving leftovers I hadn't planned to eat. Ray knocked once and let himself in like he always used to. He didn't say much, just handed me a brown leather bag and said, "Go through this when you have time." "What is it?" "Just something that should have been yours a long time ago." Then he sat at my table and ate spaghetti with me like nothing had happened, like we weren't surrounded by the wreckage of what used to be my life. And for one night, I didn't feel like a broken man. I felt like maybe I still had something left to build from. The bag sat on the kitchen table for almost a full day before I could bring myself to open it. It was the same leather carry-all Ray used to bring over tools when I was a kid, scuffed edges, one broken zipper tab, and that faint smell of sawdust and old tobacco. I didn't know what I expected to find inside. Papers, maybe. Some old family photos. A collection of warnings and wisdom from a man who always said more with silence than with words. But when I finally unbuckled the flap and pulled everything out, I found something far heavier. At the top was a folder with my name written on it in Uncle Ray's careful, blocky handwriting. Inside was a formal letter from a local attorney, Ray's lawyer, stating that the small house behind the secondary garage, the back lot, and the standalone workshop adjacent to the main shop were being legally transferred into my name. Signed. Stamped. Final. There was a deed. Bank forms. A notarized letter of gift. I just sat there, the weight of it pressing into my chest like I'd taken a hit straight to the ribs. The house wasn't huge, but it was clean and well kept. The second shop had been upgraded the year before, fully stocked and staffed during the day, with Ray only checking in now and then. It was profitable, stable. A business, a home, and a future, all handed to me at a moment when I was barely keeping it together. There was a sticky note stuck to the deed. "Don't thank me. Just use it. Build something better than what they broke." I didn't realize I was crying until a drop hit the corner of the paper and smudged the ink. The next morning, Ray called, not to follow up, not to check if I'd read anything, just to ask if I needed help with moving tools or organizing the paperwork. That was his way. No lectures. Just action. I looked around my place. The rented house felt empty now, like a room I'd already started to leave. The memories inside had changed, tainted by ghosts of what Lauren and I used to have. The idea of starting over somewhere connected to Ray, to work, to purpose, it suddenly didn't seem so impossible. That week, I brought Ellie over to the new house behind the shop. She ran circles in the empty living room while I stood in the kitchen, staring out the window, wondering how I'd ever thank Ray for pulling me from the wreckage. But he didn't want thanks. He just wanted me to rise. I moved into the house behind Ray's second shop 2 weeks after he gave me the deed. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. Solid. 2 bedrooms, a small porch, and enough yard space for Ellie to run around. The place smelled like sawdust and old wiring, but it didn't carry any ghosts. No Lauren. No Trevor. Just silence and a second chance. I painted Ellie's room first. Not because it needed it, but because I needed to feel like I was doing something just for her. I picked a soft green, something bright, but calming. She helped, in the way toddlers help, getting more paint on herself than the walls, handing me the wrong brushes, giggling until she got bored and fell asleep in a pile of drop cloths. That night, I sat in the living room surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and stared at the blank TV screen. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid of the quiet. I went back to work slowly. I started showing up at the shop, not just to visit, but to work side by side with Ray's crew. Tyler and Devin, 2 of the younger guys, were already running the place well, but they didn't mind me jumping in. In fact, they welcomed it. Ellie settled in quicker than I did. She adjusted a daycare near the shop and made fast friends with Tyler's daughter. They colored together in the office while we worked late sometimes. She stopped asking for Lauren. Stopped saying, "When's mommy coming home?" I didn't stop thinking about it, though. Not just Lauren, not just Trevor, but what it said about me that I didn't see it coming, that I let them so deep into my life, that I trusted so blindly. Ray came over a lot. He never pushed, just showed up with groceries, tools, or some random item he said he found lying around that just happened to be something I needed. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when she came back. Ellie had just laid down for her nap, and I was elbow-deep in a radiator that had been giving me trouble all morning. I heard the knock on the shop's back door, soft, hesitant. Not the way customers knock. This one felt personal. I wiped my hands, grumbling under my breath, and opened the door without thinking. Lauren stood there. Her hair was longer, tied back sloppily, her skin paler than I remembered. She looked exhausted. There was no makeup, no trace of the calm, confident woman I once called my wife. Just a worn-out shell holding something swaddled in a pale yellow blanket. A baby. My stomach dropped. We stared at each other for what felt like a full minute. Then she whispered, "Can we talk?" I should have slammed the door. I should have told her to leave and never come back. But instead, I stepped aside and let her in. The baby, a boy, from what I could see, let out a soft noise. She gently bounced him on her hip, her eyes scanning the space like she was walking into a dream she no longer recognized. "I didn't know where else to go," she said quietly. "Where's Trevor?" I asked. She looked away. "Gone," she said. "Back to service." Again. He left 2 months ago." "You mean like he left you?" I said, colder than I intended. She flinched. "He said he'd find work. But he hasn't sent a dime. He's not coming back." I stared at her. At the baby. At this twisted, broken image of a family that was never mine to begin with. "I made a mistake, Alex," she said, voice cracking. "A huge, unforgivable mistake. And I've been living in it every single day since." I crossed my arms, said nothing. "I thought I loved him," she went on. "I thought it was real. But it wasn't. It was adrenaline. Guilt. Something ugly dressed up like freedom. And now..." She looked down at the child in her arms. "I can't do this alone." I should have said it then. Should have made it clear that she lost her place in my life the moment she walked out without a word. But something in me twisted. Not pity. Not forgiveness. Recognition. I knew what it felt like to be left holding the wreckage. Still, I couldn't look at her the way I used to. I couldn't even find the strength to be angry anymore. I pointed to a chair in the office. "You've got 5 minutes." She sat and started to tell me everything. "I didn't come back to fix things," she said. "I know I can't." I stayed silent. "Trevor's gone. He left 2 months ago. No calls. No money. I don't even know where he is." She adjusted the baby on her lap, Jack. He looked maybe 4, 5 months old. Tiny. Quiet. "I was wrong about everything," she said. "He wasn't who I thought. And I don't blame you if you hate me. But I have nowhere else to go. Jack's sick. We've been sleeping in a car." I looked at her. I felt nothing for her. No love. No rage. Just cold, exhausted distance. "Why come to me?" "Because you're the only person I trust to not turn him away." I nodded once, slowly. "You can stay 3 nights. That's it. You and the baby sleep in the spare room. After that, we figure something out." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. "I don't forgive you," I added. "This doesn't change that." "I know." And that was it. No more begging. No long story. Just a broken woman and the child she brought back to the ruins she helped create. Lauren and the baby stayed in the spare room for 3 nights. True to her word, she didn't push boundaries. She didn't ask for anything more than space and warmth. She fed Jack quietly, changed him, held him, and when Ellie asked who the baby was, Lauren simply said, "A visitor," and let it be. Ellie didn't remember much about her mom. She was still too young. But something must have clicked because she started clinging to me more, holding my hand tighter, crawling into bed with me at night, like she could feel something wasn't quite right in the air. Word got around fast in Rockdale. By the end of the week, my mother knew Lauren had come back, with Trevor's baby in her arms. And just like I should have expected, she reached out. She didn't call me. She didn't ask how I was doing. Instead, she opened her door to Lauren and the baby like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Jack deserves to know his grandmother," she told me when I confronted her. "And Lauren, she's still family, Alex. She made mistakes, but she's lost, and that child didn't choose any of this." I stood there on her porch, stunned. "You never even asked how I was holding up," I said. "You've made excuses for Trevor your whole life. And now you're doing it for her." "She needed help," she said, her voice defensive. So did I. And that was it. I turned around and walked away. I didn't hate her, not completely. But something between us broke that day. Something old and unspoken. A line I never thought she'd cross. A few days later, Trevor showed up. It was just after closing time. Ellie was coloring in the corner of the office when I saw him walking across the lot. Same self-important swagger like he hadn't vanished on a woman and their newborn. "Alex," he called out, like nothing had changed. What the hell do you want? He shrugged. Heard Lauren's back. Figured maybe things have calmed down. I just need a place to crash. Couple bucks. Things didn't pan out overseas. I stepped forward slowly. She and Jack are at Mom's, I said. She took them in. He grinned. Knew she would. But you, I added, you don't belong here. Not with her. Not with us. And not in the shop. He raised an eyebrow. Seriously? Still holding a grudge? No, I said. I'm holding the line. He tried to laugh it off, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Months passed. Lauren stayed with my mother, though we didn't speak. Not directly. Sometimes she'd send updates through a mutual friend or a text about Jack's health, but I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, I just had nothing left to give her. She had her path now, and I had mine. Trevor didn't come back. I heard he bounced around a few places, signed another contract, then dropped it, then disappeared off radar. Typical. People like him don't change. They just relocate their mess. Ellie started preschool, and the first time I saw her walk into that building with her little backpack and jelly sandals, I almost cried. Not because she was growing up, but because I'd made it this far. We had. The shop was running smoother than ever. Ray stepped back even more, letting me take over operations while he played the role of advisor, showing up with donuts and old war stories that made the younger guys laugh. I found purpose in the work. Not just fixing engines, but fixing things that people relied on, solving problems, building trust. The second garage out back became my sanctuary. A space where Ellie would sit with her markers on slow days, drawing rainbows while I rebuilt carburetors. We had a rhythm, a life. No romance. No dating. I wasn't looking. I didn't want it. I wasn't ready. But I wasn't bitter either. I started sleeping better. Smiling more. You did it, Ray said beside me, arms crossed. I looked at him. Did what? Built something out of the wreckage. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Because he was right. The house might not have been big. My heart might still carry some scars. But we were standing on solid ground now. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. But suddenly Ray died. A heart attack in his sleep. Peaceful, they said. 1 minute he was here, thumbing through invoices and grumbling about coffee prices, and the next gone. The shop went quiet for a week. Everyone showed up for the funeral, old customers, neighbors, even people I didn't know but who said Ray once fixed their car for free because they couldn't afford it. That was who he was. Quiet generosity, all grit and no ego. After the service, I stood outside the shop for a long time, watching the sun set behind the building we both poured ourselves into. I thought about keeping it going, keeping his name alive. But every corner of that place held a memory, and I was tired of living among ghosts. So I sold everything. The shops, the house, the land. I packed up what we needed, loaded Ellie into the truck, and drove until Rockdale was nothing but a dot in the rearview mirror. We landed in a smaller city a few hours away. New streets, new people, no one who looked at me like a tragedy. Just a man with a daughter and some tools. I opened a small garage, not big, just enough to pay the bills and keep my hands busy. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself breathe. That's where I met Mia. She wasn't flashy, just solid. Rent a bookstore a few blocks down. The first time she came in was to get her brakes looked at. She had paint smudges on her hands from helping kids decorate the front window for Halloween. Ellie took to her instantly. It took me a while to trust what I was feeling. I moved slow, careful, but Mia was patient, kind, real. One night, Ellie curled up next to her on the couch and said, "You feel like home." And that was it. I didn't need more. Now my life is simple. We make pancakes on Sundays. We fix cars and read bedtime stories and laugh too loud. Ellie sings to herself in the backyard. I work with the garage door open just to hear it. And some nights, when the air is still, I think about the road it took to get here. The betrayal, the silence, the loss, but also the survival, the rebuilding, the love I thought was gone for good. So here's what I'll leave you with. Let them leave. Let the ones who lie, who take, who wound, let them go. Because the right people, they don't disappear. They stay. And they show you that peace doesn't come from fixing the past. It comes from building something better.